picture this. Humans on Mars. You're probably picturing, I don't know, futuristic habitats, rovers, all that, right?
Right.
But what about bacteria?
Hmm.
What about the bacteria that could make all of that possible? Today's deep dive takes us beyond the astronauts and into the fascinating world of microbes in space. We've got 3 scientific articles packed with research on how these tiny life forms could revolutionize space exploration.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about making space travel more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about using microbes to create closed-loop systems. So mimicking the natural cycles we see here on Earth.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. We're sending microbes to space to, do our dirty work? What are we talking about?
Well, yeah, think of it like this. If we have to transport every single resource that we need from Earth to, let's say, Mars, it's going to be incredibly expensive and complex.
Yeah.
But microbes offer us a way to create those resources on site. Take water, for example. We need about 20 liters of water per person per day just to survive. Imagine having to ship all of that to Mars.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of water weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with microbes, we can treat wastewater and make it drinkable again, which means we don't have to rely on those really expensive shipments from Earth.
So microbes as tiny space recyclers? I like it.
And it's not just water. We can use them to recycle solid waste, like food scraps, and even, well, human waste. And then that waste can be turned into fertilizer for growing plants.
Wow. Creating a mini-Earth ecosystem millions of miles away. Now, that's what I call resourcefulness. But, it gets even more mind-boggling because I was reading these articles, and they were talking about using microbes to actually make building materials in space.
It does sound a bit like Star Trek, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's where the research gets really exciting.
Okay, so tell me more. This is amazing.
Imagine using microbes to mine valuable metals, like iron directly from Martian or lunar soil. This is called biomining.
So instead of shipping, heavy construction materials, we're sending tiny miners to do the heavy lifting for us.
Precisely. And then we could potentially use these extracted metals to 3D print tools or even habitat components right there on another planet. And it's not just about mining metals either. Certain fungi, with names like Ganoderma lucidum and Pleurotus ostritus.
Ganoderma, Pleurotus, it sounds like a magic spell or something.
They do sound a bit otherworldly, don't they?
Yeah.
But trust me, the science is very real.
Okay.
These fungi can produce a material called mycelium. Mycelium is incredibly strong, it's lightweight, and it's versatile. And we could potentially grow structures on Mars with fungus.
So we could be living in houses grown from mushrooms on Mars. That's amazing. That's next level sustainability. And speaking of sustainable building, these articles also mention something about microbes creating self-healing concrete.
Yes. And it's a process called, scientists call it MICP, or microbially induced calcite precipitation. It is a catchy name. Essentially, certain microbes can trigger a reaction that forms calcium carbonate, which is a key component of concrete.
So hold on, if cracks were to form in a Martian structure built with this bioconcrete.
Those cracks could potentially repair themselves.
Wow.
It's like having a built-in repair crew at a microscopic level.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've gone from sterile metal boxes in space to talking about bio-integrated ecosystems on Mars, but sending microbes into space, that has to come with some risks, right? Could these microscopic helpers turn on us?
That's a really crucial question because while the potential benefits of using microbes are vast, we also have to be very aware of the challenges. And space is a very harsh and unforgiving environment, and it can have some unexpected effects on these microorganisms.
What kind of effect? Are we talking about alien zombie bacteria here?
Laughs slightly. Not quite zombies. But some bacteria, for example, Salmonella, have been shown to become more virulent, or you could say more dangerous to humans, in space-like conditions.
More dangerous? What causes that change?
Well, scientists believe that it's due to the stresses of space, such as microgravity, cosmic radiation, these kinds of things, and that these stresses can actually alter how genes are expressed in these bacteria. However, more research is definitely needed to fully understand exactly what is happening.
So there's a chance that these microbes could mutate in ways that we haven't anticipated.
It's a possibility that we have to consider, yeah. And then there's also the issue of biofilm formation.
Biofilm? You mean that slimy stuff that builds up in your shower?
Exactly.
Okay.
But in space, it's more than just an inconvenience. Because these biofilms, which are basically colonies of microbes all encased in this sort of protective layer, they can clog life support systems and even corrode materials.
Oh, so imagine a biofilm, like messing up your oxygen supply in the middle of space.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about.
It is a valid concern. But the good news is that scientists are already looking at ways to prevent this. So they are testing specialized coatings for surfaces that can prevent biofilms from forming. There's even research being done on using plant extracts, which can have antimicrobial properties.
So we could fight space slime with essential oils.
We'll think of it more like harnessing the power of nature's medicine cabinet, because many plants actually produce compounds that can inhibit microbial growth.
That's fascinating. I'm curious about this because these articles also mention something called HGT, or horizontal gene transfer.
Right.
Can you explain what that is and how that's related to all of this?
Yeah, of course. In the simplest terms, HGT is like microbes swapping genes with each other. Imagine it as them sharing recipes for survival.
Okay.
Now, in a closed environment like a spacecraft, this exchange of genetic material could potentially lead to the spread of antibiotic resistance.
That doesn't sound good.
It is a valid concern, because if a microbe that's beneficial to our space mission were to pick up a gene for antibiotic resistance, it could complicate matters if we needed to control its growth later.
It's amazing how something so small, like the exchange of genes between microbes, could have such significant implications for the future of space travel. So with all these potential benefits and these risks that we're talking about, how do we even begin to make this vision of microbes in space a reality? Like, what are the next steps here?
Well, first, I think we need to move beyond the usual suspects, those microbes that are commonly used in labs, like E. coli. And while they're great for controlled experiments, they might not be the best candidates for the very harsh realities of space.
So ditch the lab rats and find ourselves some, like, microbial astronauts. What would those even look like?
Exactly. We need to start looking at extremophiles.
Okay.
These are organisms that thrive in the most extreme environments on Earth. Think about the microbes that are just living large in the boiling hot springs of Yellowstone, or even in the icy depths of the Arctic.
Oh, wow. Those are some tough microbes.
They are.
It sounds like they could handle whatever space throws at them.
Exactly. They have evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most other life forms, making them, yeah, you could say perfect candidates for space exploration.
Wow.
But of course, before we launch them into the great unknown.
We need to make sure they can handle the job.
Exactly.
Okay.
Rigorous testing here on Earth is crucial. And this involves building closed-loop life support systems that simulate the conditions of space as closely as possible.
So like a space boot camp for microbes.
Precisely. And there are projects like the European Space Agency's MELISA project, which stands for Macroecological Life Support System Alternative.
Okay.
They're already leading the way here.
Okay.
And it focuses on creating a fully closed-loop system that can regenerate air, water, and even produce food using microbes.
So Melissa is like a test run for a self-sustaining base on Mars.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It's a really ambitious undertaking, but it's crucial if we want to make long-duration space missions sustainable. But of course, even with extensive testing on Earth.
Nothing beats actually seeing how these systems perform in space, right?
Absolutely. The International Space Station has been invaluable for this kind of research. It gives us a platform to study how microbes behave in microgravity and really expose them to the realities of the space environment. And of course, as we set our sights on the Moon and Mars.
We'll need like even more sophisticated testing grounds.
Precisely. Future lunar bases will be absolutely essential for pushing the boundaries of these bioregenerative life support systems and paving the way for a future where humans and microbes work together to expand our presence in the cosmos.
This is all so fascinating. We've covered like the potential benefits of all of this, like recycling waste, generating oxygen, even building structures on other planets. And we've also touched on the risks, like from increased virulence to the challenges of biofilm formation and all of that. Before we move on to even more exciting possibilities, what would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listeners so far?
I think the key takeaway here is that microbes, despite their size, have a monumental role to play in the future of space exploration. And it's not just about mitigating risks, but it's about harnessing their power to create a sustainable presence beyond Earth. So we've talked about microbes as, master recyclers and even construction workers in space.
Right.
But let's sort of dive a little bit deeper into this fascinating but complex interplay between HGT, biofilms, and virulence that we touched upon earlier.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like we're getting into like the nitty-gritty of microbial space travel here.
Yeah.
What's so fascinating about this interplay?
Well, imagine this. Microgravity, the very thing that makes space so different from Earth. It can actually speed up the rate of HGT between microbes.
Hmm.
So in simple terms, it's like they're having this microbial potluck where they're swapping genes more easily without gravity, holding them back.
Oh, wow. So it's like their social lives are getting a boost in space.
Exactly.
But we talked about how HGT could lead to antibiotic resistance, right? Is
Right.
that something to be, like, seriously concerned about?
It's definitely a consideration, and this is where biofilms come into play.
Okay.
Because they act as hotspots for HGT. Like, imagine microbial cities where genes are traded like souvenirs.
Mm.
And here's the double whammy. Microgravity, which we know can increase HGT, can also make some bacteria more likely to form biofilms in the first place.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we have microgravity potentially increasing HGT, leading to more biofilms, which then further accelerate HGT.
Right.
That sounds like a recipe for a microbial takeover.
That's a bit dramatic, but it illustrates why understanding these interactions is so crucial. Now, add in the fact that biofilms can make those microbial communities more resistant to antibiotics and even disinfectants, and you can see why scientists are taking this seriously.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like we're talking about like a whole new level of antibiotic resistance, one
Yeah.
that's like evolving in space.
Yeah.
Are there ways to prevent this? Like, what are scientists doing to like tackle this space slime?
That's a great question. And researchers are exploring a variety of strategies.
Okay.
One approach is to try to prevent the formation of biofilms in the first place.
Okay.
So think about specialized coatings on surfaces that can stop microbes from sticking, or even incorporating materials like copper, which has natural antimicrobial properties, into spacecraft design.
Oh, like those copper doorknobs you see in some hospitals.
Exactly.
Taking it back to basics for like space age problems.
Sometimes the old solutions are the most effective,
Yeah.
but we're also looking at more modern approaches like harnessing the power of, you guessed it, plants.
Plants to the rescue again. How does that work?
So many plants produce compounds with really powerful antimicrobial and even anti-biofilm properties
Mm.
that we could potentially use plant extracts to clean surfaces or even incorporate them into building materials.
So instead of like harsh chemicals, we could be cleaning our future space stations with plant-based disinfectants.
Potentially, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And incredibly sustainable, too.
Yeah.
If we're already growing plants for food in space, why not use those same plants for hygiene and sanitation?
It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about it, we've gone from the wonder of using microbes to like recycle waste to tackling these very real challenges of like antibiotic resistance and biofilms in space.
Right.
It seems like every solution kind of leads to this new set of questions and possibilities.
That's the beauty of science. And in the case of space exploration, understanding these complexities is absolutely crucial for ensuring the safety and sustainability of future missions.
Absolutely. And we've covered a lot of ground here, from biomining and biomaterials to the complexities of HGT and biofilms.
Right. We're really getting a sense of just how important microbes are to the future of space exploration.
They're critical.
What would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners about this intricate dance between HGT, biofilms, and virulence?
That's a great question. I think the key point here is that the space environment adds this extra layer of complexity to these microbial interactions.
Okay.
Things that we take for granted on Earth, like gravity, the presence of a diverse biosphere, these all influence how microbes behave.
Right.
So as we venture further into space, understanding and managing these complexities will be paramount to our success.
That's a really good point. So we're not just thinking about what microbes can do for us in space,
Right.
but also how the space environment might change them.
Exactly. And those changes could have implications for both the success of our missions and potentially even for life back here on Earth.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's maybe shift gears a bit.
Okay.
We've talked about the challenges and the potential risks.
But what about the solutions?
Yeah.
These articles highlight some fascinating research and projects that are like paving the way for a future where microbes are really our partners in space.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the things that stood out to you? So we've been talking about simulating these like space environments for our microbes here on Earth.
Right.
But what does that actually look like? Like, are we building like mini Martian biodomes in labs?
Well, it's not quite a Martian landscape,
Okay.
but you're on the right track. We're talking about creating these really complex, closed-loop systems called bioregenerative life support systems.
Okay.
And these systems have to essentially mimic all of the essential functions of an ecosystem,
Wow.
from growing food
Mm.
and recycling waste to maintaining a breathable atmosphere,
Okay.
all within a controlled environment here on Earth.
It sounds like an incredibly, challenging balancing act.
It is.
How do they even begin to, build something like that?
It's all about interconnectedness.
Okay.
So take, for example, the Melissa project that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It utilizes a series of what we call specialized bioreactors,
Okay.
each one designed for a very specific task.
Okay.
So there's an anaerobic digester to break down solid waste. There's a photobioreactor where algae are grown for oxygen production, and even a nitrifying reactor that actually converts the harmful ammonia from waste into nitrates,
Yeah.
which can then be used as fertilizer for the plants.
Wow. So it's like a carefully orchestrated symphony
Is
of microbes, but instead of musical instruments, we're talking about bacteria and algae.
Precisely. And it's a real testament to the ingenuity and the collaborative spirit of scientists across so many different disciplines, all working together to engineer these microbial ecosystems, fine-tuning each component to create this self-sustaining life support system.
And once we've kind of ironed out the kinks in these Earth-based systems, then the next step is to see how they actually perform in space.
Of course, because there's no substitute for the real-world testing. And the International Space Station has been an absolutely invaluable platform for conducting these kinds of experiments, observing how microbes behave in microgravity.
Right.
And these experiments have provided really crucial insights into things like biofilm formation, gene expression in space, all of that.
So the ISS is like a stepping stone, helping us prepare for even more ambitious missions, like to the moon and Mars.
Exactly. Future lunar bases will be essential for really pushing the boundaries of these bioregenerative life support systems,
Okay.
testing them on a much larger scale and in a much more challenging environment.
It sounds like we're really on the cusp of this new era of space exploration, one where microbes are our allies, not just passengers along for the ride.
I completely agree.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
It has.
What started as this seemingly simple question, can microbes help us explore space,
Right.
has uncovered this entire universe of complexity, but also possibilities. For our listeners who are really eager to delve even deeper into this fascinating field, where would you suggest they go from here?
Well, for those who are interested in the really nitty-gritty details,
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out the European Space Agency's website and searching for information on the Melissa project.
Oh.
They have a wealth of resources that really delve into the specifics of the research.
Perfect.
And then for a more broader perspective on the role of microbes in space exploration in general, NASA's astrobiology program is another fantastic source of information.
Those are great starting points. This entire journey into the world of microbial space explorers has really left me with a sense of wonder and excitement for the future.
As it should.
Who knew that something so small could hold the key to something so grand?
It's truly remarkable, isn't it? The more we learn about the microbial world, the more we realize just how interconnected life really is, both here on Earth and as we venture further out into the cosmos.
And as we continue to explore, I have no doubt that these tiny but mighty life forms will continue to surprise us, challenge us, and ultimately help us create a sustainable future among the stars.
I think you're absolutely right.